Utah Valley University today.
The shooting happened before a crowd of hundreds on the campus of Utah Valley University, where Charlie Kirk was kicking off a fall tour of college campuses. Kirk's on-campus events would feature him engaging with members of the audience who often espoused views contrary to his. It was during a back and forth on mass shootings allegedly committed by transgender people that the shooting occurred. The bullet struck the 31-year-old near his throat. Kirk's security team quickly swept in and carried him away. Stephen Portnoy, ABC News.
President Trump ordered flags at half-staff through Sunday. Both Republicans and Democrats have denounced the killing and latest political violence. This is ABC News. NATO officials and allies call Russia's breach of Poland's airspace an escalation. Russian drones targeting Ukraine crossed into neighboring Poland last night, leading NATO to scramble jets to shoot them down. It comes as President Trump's efforts to get Russia's leader to agree to a ceasefire has stalled. ABC's Selena Wang.
All of this comes as the president's credibility is on the line here. There were some harsh words from the foreign minister of Poland saying the following, quote, Putin laughs at President Trump's peace efforts. Since Alaska, he has only intensified the war. I hope that he backs his words with action. Now, the foreign minister there referring to President Trump's summit with Putin in Alaska last month, which President Trump had billed as this summit for peace. But since then, Putin has only escalated the attacks on Ukraine.
In Nepal, at least 30 are dead from Monday's government crackdown on protests over social media bans and corruption. More than 1,000 others injured, and the prime minister also resigned. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
$5,000. That's the average amount of money people in the U.S. are now spending on gas in a year. $5,000. That's crazy. If you drive, you have to download Upside, the free app that gives you cash back every time you get gas. That's right. You can earn real cash back with Upside just by buying the gas you're already buying. You can literally start earning cash back today.
I use Upside every time I fill up, and I've already made around $200-$300.
You're putting gas in your car anyway. Why not get real cash back? If you like free money, download Upside.
I'm saving the cash I earn from using Upside to help pay for a vacation later this year.
Download the free Upside app now to earn cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code COOL to get an extra 25 cents per gallon on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code COOL for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code COOL for a 25 cents per gallon bonus.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives, a political discussion group about current events and other government-related matters every Wednesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Right here on WSMN 1590 AM, WSMN 95.3 FM, and streaming live on wsmn.live. Making sense of the inverted reality we are subject to every day, the Common Sense Conservatives are here to help bring you back to reality. Now, your hosts, Chris Wyatt, Todd McKinley, and John Gorman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Common Sense Conservatives right here, WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 on your FM dial. I really just don't even know how to open the show tonight. This is the nuttiest thing we've seen in quite a while. I'm sure everybody's heard that at 31 years of age, Charlie Kirk has passed away because he was shot at an event. And I hope you folks out there listening will join me when I say this changes nothing. We as conservatives will always cling to our guns. We will not back down. And it's very disheartening to see something like this happen. Todd, what do you think?
No, you're absolutely correct. You know, it's one of those things like, you know, the left sits there and then they decry guns and, you know, gun violence, and that they go out and commit gun violence to shut somebody out who's just merely talking, using words to discuss gun violence, you know, amongst other things. You can disagree with somebody and you can vehemently disagree, but you don't go shoot them in the face just because they're saying something you don't like. Say something better than they're saying. You know what I'm saying? Counter them with a different argument. Counter them with facts or logic. Convince people that you're right, they're wrong. Don't go shoot them in the face in some vain attempt to win people over or whatever the hell you're thinking. It's not going to work.
I agree. It takes a weak man of a lesser standard to do such a thing. You know,
Right.
He didn't have the kahunas to stand up and speak. Chris, how's it going, brother? What do you think?
It just reminds us how dangerous these people truly are. They tried to murder Republican congressmen at a baseball practice, horrifically injuring Steve Scalise altering his life forever. They tried to beat Rand Paul to death with a hammer at the door of his home. They tried to cause Josh Hawley's 9-month pregnant wife to miscarry by beating on her door and threatening her when he was in Missouri on an election campaign. They attempted to murder Donald Trump twice that we know about publicly, and I suspect 3 other times that we haven't been informed about based on the way events unfolded. And they've now murdered Charlie Kirk. Why? Because Charlie Kirk was a threat. Why was he a threat? Because his ideology? No, he's actually, right of center, but not far to the right. Charlie Kirk engage people. He asked people to engage him in debates, and that made him a threat because his debates were convincing. And while I wasn't a Charlie Kirk fan, I respected him immensely. The reason I wasn't a fan is because, to me, Turning Point USA really didn't care about anybody unless you're under the age of 30. And I'm sorry, but I'm a little past that timeline there. I'm past my sell-by date. So, but Charlie Kirk engaged people, and therefore he was a threat because he changed minds with his convincing arguments. This, make no mistake, and as the governor, Spencer Cox of Utah stated, and I've been saying since earlier this evening, make no mistake, this was a political assassination. No matter what poppycock we coming out of authorities, this was a political murder. And what is shocking about this is that if you had the misfortune of seeing the video, which many people have seen of the actual moment, I was shocked to hear that he was still alive, because that was something strict right out of a horror film where they talk about how you sliced, and it just, I mean, he must have lost a gallon of blood in a matter of seconds. It's a miracle they got into the hospital alive. It's a tragedy for his family. It is a tragedy for the nation. This political violence. We just had these politicians attacked in Minnesota who are Democrats. Gabby Giffords was shot in Arizona a few years back. We had Lee Zeldin attacked at a political event by these lunatics. This is something that seriously needs to be addressed in this country. And I'm not talking about Second Amendment rights being taken away. I'm talking about dealing with deranged people or people who have dangerous views. Instead of letting murderers back on the street and rapists back on the street and 14-time convicted felons back on the street to murder Ukrainian refugees. And instead of lying about the crime in this country, who's committing it, it's time to start telling the truth in this country. And that starts with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, not doctoring statistics and working all the way down to local law enforcement. Let's get with it. This is, look, again, I'm not a huge fan or supporter of Charlie Kirk, although I respected his work immensely. But the man is now a martyr. And this, I am concerned, will spark additional violence. I have concerns that that's going to happen. Although conservatives don't typically turn to violence, that doesn't mean there aren't yahoos out there. And this is a tragedy of epic proportions. A country has been robbed of a brilliant orator and a fantastic debater, the likes of which we haven't seen come very often. It's sad to see, Todd.
No, you're absolutely correct. Yeah, and I was trying to figure out a way to express it. Yeah, and that's true. I didn't really support Charlie for some reasons because I'm slightly over 30 and I'm ignored amongst that group. And it's like you want to talk about bringing people together. Let's bring every American together, all walks of life, every age, and all that. And yeah, you're right. He did. His organization especially ignored that. But other than the fact that he was out there, talking about things he believed in, a lot of things I agreed with him on for sure, and a lot of the theories I subscribe to. But anyway, he didn't deserve to get shot in the neck. I mean, while just sitting there having a conversation. If you don't like it, just leave. You don't have to listen to it. Hold another organization. Hold a different protest across campus. Hold a competing event. Try to get people there. I dare say you probably only have a fraction of what he had. Maybe just be able to fill up a front row compared to what he had. And that scared people because he actually engaged people. He made them think, and he actually made people. I don't say made people, but he inspired people to go out onto campuses and actually speak their mind versus just remaining silent, which we've seen for decades upon decades on college campuses.
Well, Todd, sorry to interrupt your job, but Todd, yes, I've seen just how dangerous these people are when they went after Milo a few years back, an openly gay Republican, and they tried to bar him from being on UC Berkeley. I mean, absolutely insane, the behavior, this peace and love and kumbaya and everybody's welcome. It's a big tent. It's not a big tent if you say anything that's off their reservation. And they don't want to argue. They don't want to debate you. They want to kill you. They want to eliminate you. They want to drive you into the sea. And we see tonight, interesting, Gavin Newsom offered his condolences. So did little twerp Harry Sisson and a couple other Democrats, but all of them are almost verbatim. It's almost as if someone sent them talking points and they edited them. Really sick. And then we see the ghouls just jumping for joy and dancing when they found out that he was shot. I've seen horrific conduct on MSNBC, on BBC, because I'm over here. It's just, I've got a bunch of notes here to go through, John. Hopefully we can get through them in this hour while I'm with you guys.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, man. Bring it on. No, you guys are absolutely right in what you're saying. Charlie Kirk, the thing about it is yes, he was 30 and under group, and we needed that. We needed that kind of dynamics because that was his niche, and I loved him for it because we needed the dynamics to usher in the younger crowd. Yeah, we got young Republicans groups and things like that, and there's a lot of nice things that people are doing, but he was effective, and they knew it. He was a threat to them, and that's why this happened.
No, my issue, and it wasn't that what he was necessarily talking about or inspiring young people to get involved, which I enjoy that. I appreciate that. When I ran for Congress, I specifically went out to the younger kids on college campuses and talked to them, tried to get them to come out and help support me, and they were actually overlooked, and that was about the time 2018, a little bit before then is whenever the Charlie Kirk thing was really getting hot, right during the 2016 campaign and onward. So a lot of those guys actually came out and did support me and help me to a degree, which I truly appreciate. But you see in recent years, I go to political events and you see some of the folks inspired by that organization that come out and say that they kind of ignore the older people, and it's like they want to just focus on I'm right and this is how we're going to do it, and then they scream really loud. It's like, wait a minute, that's not what Charlie Kirk was about. He wasn't coming out yelling at people and telling them why they're right. He'd come out and just had a nice calm demeanor and said, here is the facts, here's my issue, and here's my approach, and here's my thoughts on it. We don't need to actually yell at one another and create infighting to be a leader within the conservative or Republican Party. And a few folks I've had run-ins with that were kind of wanting to just be firebrands, but on the right, like the left is, they're out firebranding. It's like, let's have common sense dialogue, not yelling at one another. So I did have a few issues with some individuals. Maybe that was my pushback from that organization, but on the whole, I do agree with what you had to say, Colonel.
Well, again, when I was interested in working with Turning Point, when they came around, trying to give them some advice and mentor them as a person that spent decades, in the sidelines, but working politics. I obviously couldn't do certain things in uniform, but I've been running political campaigns back when I was 17 as a young Republican in college. But I tried to contact them, and they just kind of blew me off as an organization. And I said to them, I said, well, maybe you should watch the movie Logan's Run.
Right.
If you think that only people under 30, you too will be 30 one day, so keep that in mind.
Well, it's funny, the guy at the Capitol kind of reminded me of you whenever you had your longer beard, with all the books and stuff. That's kind of like you.
Yeah, that was Peter Ustinov. Peter Ustinov. Yeah. No, so John, my comments here, just a few things. So shortly after 4 p.m., 1600 this afternoon, the House of Representatives was called to order to ask for a moment of prayer in memory of Charlie Kirk. Democrats got up and objected to it. These are ghoulish, sick people. And then on MSNBC, Matthew Dowd said that when you spew hatred, I never heard Charlie Kirk spew any hatred. He had positions that people didn't like, and that doesn't mean he's hateful. That just means that their perverted, nonsense is not something he believed in. He was a devout Christian and a father. And he said that Matthew Dowd tried to say when it first happened, we don't know if this was one of his supporters shooting a gun in celebration. What
celebration at Charlie Kirk?
He said, well, that he was trying to be a smart aleck. He said, yeah, we don't know if it's just not his supporters shooting off their gun in celebration. I mean, these people are sick. MSNBC should be banned from the airwaves. It's not a media outlet. It's a hate speech center. Anyway, so Dow went on to say he's been one of the most divisive figures pushing hate speech. No, that's not true. Saying awful words and not expect any consequences. The fact that he has a position that the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association was in agreement with until recently when they became woke doesn't mean he spread hate speech. He's talking specifically his issue on transgender. Also, the BBC here in England said some vile things. They had a commentator on and said, well, he wasn't loved. Did you see the footage of the crowd when he whipped up the crowd? And also on our news broadcast at the top of the hour, they were misleading the public. There were thousands of supporters there. There weren't hundreds. There were hundreds immediately around him. There were thousands. I counted several thousand people there. So Today, I watched the press conference a short while ago. Today, at 12:20 Mountain Standard Time, Charlie Kirk was shot at Utah Valley University, and he was taken to a hospital where he later passed away. The killer remains at large. George Zinn was arrested, and people thought he was a suspect. He was incorrect suspect, but he is in jail for obstruction of justice because he interfered with police and I think falsely claimed he was a shooter or something like that. One shot, one victim, Charlie Kirk. This was a targeted attack.
Right.
The FBI sent their condolences to the family and friends and to those who had to witness horrific situation. The Salt Lake field office responded immediately from the FBI with tactical, investigative, and intelligence assets on the ground, and a tip line is coming. The FBI said they were shocked and saddened by the shooting. Governor Spencer Cox of Utah was on the scene for the press conference. He said it's a dark day for our state and a tragic day for our nation. I want to make clear this is a political assassination, which is what I said from the moment that I saw it.
Right.
We are celebrating 250 years of American history. And he asked the question, is this where we are after 250 years? He said, today a life was taken. Charlie Kirk was first and foremost a husband and a dad to 2 children. He believed in the power of free speech and debate. And that's why I think people should respect him. Excuse me. I'm not choked up or that. I got a little build up here. But Charlie debates, and that's foundational to our nation. To whoever did this, Governor Cox said, we will find you, we will try you, and hold you to account. And I want to remind people that we still have the death penalty in Utah. Oh, I loved hearing that sentence. I loved hearing it. This is as I said, we've had these political assassinations in Minnesota, the attempted assassination of Pennsylvania's Governor Josh Shapiro by burning down the mansion recently, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, the attempted murder of Rand Paul, the baseball game, plus Gabby Gifford. He said, I don't care what his politics are. I care that Charlie Kirk was an American. And the FBI said that the police, they do have a person of interest in custody. That's not the gentleman that they arrested initially. There's another person who's a person of interest in custody at this hour. And the only thing they have for evidence thus far is CCTV. And of course, that's not always the best. And the individual that they believe is a shooter was dressed in all dark clothing. When asked, the campus police captain said that we had officers on duty. 6 officers were present, plus plainclothes police officers from the campus police were on campus in the crowd. And Charlie Kirk's security team, which as I recall had 8 people in it. Those kind of comments at press conference, but the biggest development there was that they do have a person in custody, and they would not reveal anymore a person of interest, whether that's a shooter or someone that aided the shooter. They didn't say, but we don't know. So there's a lot of concern on the Utah Valley campus right now because they don't know if the shooter's been captured. Go ahead, Todd. I interrupt you there.
Oh, no. Yeah, no. You talked about the gentleman who was arrested for obstruction, claiming he was the shooter. Leads me to believe, is there more than just the lone gunman here? Is there some sort of conspiracy to try to hide the person who did it so they can get away? Maybe I'm not sure.
Well, we still don't know anything about the attempted murderer or the guy who tried to murder Trump last year in Butler. We still don't know about that.
No, it's true.
And look at this. And we have supposedly the best law enforcement agencies in the world in the Secret Service, ATF, and the FBI, and we still don't know anything. What about the guy in Florida who tried to murder Trump at the golf course? We know nothing about that. But we know everything about Daniel Penny, who was innocent and killed nobody on the subway in New York when he saved people's lives using deadly force.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. They want to put him on trial for merely putting a guy in a chokehold who was trying to kill people. He saved lives, and then you want to say he's a murderer.
And they put him on trial and put him in pretrial confinement. This is sick city. Yep.
Absolutely.
Some people in the comments are pointing towards Antifa. And somebody's saying if Antifa, they need to be finally officially categorized as domestic terrorists. Were they not already? I thought.
Well, I don't know if Antifa has been categorized, but we have to be very careful about who we blame. People are blaming leftists. People are blaming trans. People are blaming Democrats. We don't know who this is right now. It could very well be, I don't know, a disgruntled, former Turning Point. But I'm not saying that. We don't know.
Clearly, they were just suggesting it. But yeah, you're right.
No. I'm just saying we need to not jump to conclusions because people jump to conclusions then often look foolish. I mean, there was a very good CNN reporter back in the 1990s who went to Oklahoma City, and he was there, and he was in town for something else, and he went to the convention center across the street, and all these jihadists were in there selling how to make bombs, how to kill Christians, how to become a martyr, all these videos on DVDs and VHS tapes back in the 90s. And he did a story on CNN, and he became pretty famous. I can't think of his name right now. I've actually met him. I went to a briefing he did once upon a time. But then when This is before the Oklahoma City thing. When the Oklahoma City bombing or something like that, he jumped on and said, this has all the hallmarks of an Islamic terrorist. And it turned out to be, a white boy from the United States. Remember that?
Right.
The Oklahoma City bombing?
Nichols
so,
and McVeigh.
McVeigh, yeah.
Yeah, Timothy McVeigh. So he and everyone else, but then his credibility was destroyed, even though he's a very good journalist, because he jumped the gun. So before we say who it is, this is why I'm very circumspect if I start laying the blame until we have some more evidence. When they grab the old guy, people start saying, "Look at that, he's a typical lefty." He's not even the guy that did it. So let's wait and see and find out who's responsible for it. But what I can say, that's why I said when these people, and you notice I talked about political assassinations of Republicans and Democrats. Right. Not just Republicans, but yeah, clearly there are people who cannot handle debate, and their response is violence, and this is what we have.
Right, same person way. I mean, as much as we disliked Obama, we wouldn't wish such an ill will. As much as we didn't like Biden, we wouldn't wish such an ill will. That's just rational behavior.
No. I want both of them to serve prison time. Why would I want them dead?
Right.
Yeah.
We want them to serve justice.
I want to see the perp walk. I want to see them, as that gavel falls and they get sentenced. Yeah, I'd love to see that.
But the point is true. None of us would insanely wish ill will on him like that. That's just ridiculous.
No, of course not. What I want to see is Joe Biden being led away in handcuffs as classified documents fall out of his pants.
Right. Yeah. and he trips going up some stairs. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Anyway, but guys, I don't know. Did either of you see the video?
Yes, I did.
I did.
It was disgusting. It was instantaneous. Once it hit him, he was bleeding out. It was horrible. That's about as graphic as I'm going to get, but yeah.
Yeah, now that he's passed, at the time I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to frighten people or tamp down hope. But there's no way he could have survived that. No. I don't know how they kept him alive as long as they did. He just ripped his jugular apart, his artery, and it was something out of a Hollywood movie. That's what you see in a Hollywood movie.
Right.
It was unbelievable. It reminded me of Bosch when they killed that young kid on that one episode under the bridge there a long time ago. In that episode, this is unfathomable, John. This is 31 years of age. He has an infant son who will never know his father, all because he debated people and was characterized falsely by a bunch of. And this is the problem. The Democrats. Pritzker, that scumbag from Illinois, is outblaming Trump for this. For Trump, saying things. It's the Democrats that say these evil things. It's the Democrats who do this all the time, and they ratchet up the temperature and they encourage through their words and their actions. Look what happened in the House. They can't even have the respect to have a moment of prayer. They have moaned about having a prayer. I have no idea who it was, but Democrats in the back of the chamber were screaming, and I heard the F word thrown out, and I tried to pump up the volume because their microphones went on. But I was only successful getting part of the dialogue. But these are just nasty, evil people. These aren't the Democrats we grew up with. Your parents, who were Democrats because they were in the union, or they were the pipe fitters,
right.
Or they worked on the railroad and they believed in the middle class. These people are disgusting scumbags who believe in perverted ideology, corruption and graft, and the destruction of America as long as they profit from it.
Yep, absolutely. And those folks that you talked about, that built the country, who ended up joining a union because they wanted to make sure their jobs were safe, wanted to have ensure that their workplace was safe, and of course if they got sick they could have a job whenever they come back from sick leave, whatever. Those aren't the same Democrats that you see today. The Democrats that you see today are people who want to destroy and tear down what their fathers and grandfathers and so on and so forth built. They want to destroy that and not rebuild it in their image, because they don't even know what the image is that they would want to rebuild it in. They just want to destroy what you've built. They want to take what you own, what you've saved up for, to pass on to your next generation. And they want to take your ability to protect all of that away from you so that they can arbitrarily decide amongst themselves what's right, what's wrong, and what you're going to suffer through.
They want to usher in form of communism or socialism, whatever you want to call it, whatever's next to come. That's what they want to usher in. Anything but a free republic. That's what they're trying to do, is kill a free republic and bring in some sort of communistic regime. And we've seen what happened in places like Venezuela. Okay, with socialism. We've seen how it collapses. We've seen how middle class goes first. We've seen how things just, you got people out there basically just living out of dumpsters anymore over there. They're fleeing the country, trying to get out of the country. What was once a good country, a good free country, has turned into a rat's nest.
Yeah.
So two things, guys. Number one of my viewers has popped in and he said the Popcast show 3.0. There are still many of us out there, Chris, middle class union workers, and that's great, Popcast. And I respect people who earn their way in life and don't look for a handout. And you can vote for whomever you like. That's your prerogative. But we both know that the Democratic Party today, the leadership of it, the members who represent your party at the national level, are not a reflection of who you are. They are not. They are not. Sorry to say Mitch McConnell. He might as well be a Democrat.
Right.
the Chuck Schumers, the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Jasmine Crockett's. They're not a reflection of middle-class American, hardworking Americans. That's number one. Number two, on my most recent trip to South Africa a few months ago, after this refugee program thing blew up and became a huge issue, I was very circumspect about even telling people I was coming to South Africa, and very cautious about how far in advance I notified people and put out notice about my meet and greets. Despite the fact that oftentimes it was if a 48-hour at best notification that I was having a meet and greet somewhere in the country, I still had over 1,400 people come to my meet and greets. But the reason I did that is because the threats I had received before I went to South Africa, because people don't want cogent conversation and lucid discussion. They want to shut you up and they want to dominate and they want their supremacy. Now, I believe, like Charlie Kirk did, in conversation and debate, and you can bring your ideas, and I'm happy to destroy them and show you how you're wrong. That's what adults do. Anyway, in fact, I just had a conversation with a prominent journalist in South Africa who wrote something about President Trump and the tariffs and attributed in what I believe in a false fashion to why their tariffs are there. And I wrote to him in private rather than make a video and embarrass him. I said, listen, I disagree with you for this. And he wrote back and said, well, I disagree for this reason. And I said, see, that's the fabric of adulthood. We can have a conversation and we can agree to disagree. Yep.
Right. Absolutely. And one reason why we don't, give out the hotel that you're staying in, especially whenever you're in South Africa, is for security reasons, for sure.
Yeah, well, I actually outed myself here in England my first week here. I mentioned where I was at, what town I was in.
Right. Yeah.
However,
maybe that was my fault, but you're a little bit safer there. But I don't know, exercising your free speech, you may not be all of a sudden.
No, not safe in England to exercise free speech. I mean, I'll tell you what, I could have done about 85 videos since I got here, and I've only done 2 on England because I'm actually a little bit afraid of the police knocking on the door and finding me. But my viewers on my program have noticed I've been going to coffee shops, and you've got Starbucks, but a bigger one here in UK is Costa, and they have these massive cups for cappuccinos, and I call them adult sippy cups because they got handles on both sides.
There you go.
So I'm not in a coffee shop now, and people are like, Chris, can you buy those mugs? No, they're not for sale. But look what I have.
But you can steal them. Is that what you just said?
I didn't steal anything. You never know what you find in the dumpster, gentlemen. Dumpster dive.
You can steal away, but you can't exercise free speech while you're at the coffee shop.
Exactly.
Yeah, they got some unreal laws over there, don't they? When it comes to free speech.
They've got it's crazy. In fact, every time I log into any website, I have to agree to all the standards conditions because they make these companies put it up. Anyway. I don't want to knock on the door at the hotel this late at night, so we'll just leave it at that. But when I get back to the States, I might have a few more things to say, but got to be very, very careful.
Wait a minute, you're over here on the Common Sense Conservatives broadcasting out of the United States of America, but you can't use free speech because you're in England. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I mean, physically, I'm here. I could be detained here. They can't detain me in Pennsylvania.
Right.
Wow. I mean, they used to be our brothers, but I don't know anymore. I'm just like, whatever. I guess we kicked their butts twice. I mean, it might have to be a third time at some point in time in the near future.
Well, we saved their bacon quite a few times as well, but that's another story.
Weren't they threatening to arrest Americans for free speech? Wasn't some idiot over there was like, oh, I'll go to the United States and arrest them if they talk, it's like,
good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. Exactly. In fact, France just put a big $375 million fine on Google, claiming that they were sticking cookies in their emails and sticking ads in there. Well, that's Google's prerogative. You consent to the terms and conditions. They're claiming that people didn't know that. I don't know who in the world thinks that Gmail is free and doesn't come with advertising. So anyway, Trump is probably going to take notice of that. Watch the tariffs in France get ratcheted up at a time when their government just collapsed.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, they had to replace the president, and the second time in past 2 years, less than 2 years, I think. Roughly,
PM, isn't it? They replaced the PM, not the president.
No, yeah, the prime minister was
PM. Sorry, yeah, the president had to replace the PM. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
correct.
right, and so he replaced him. But I don't think this government's going to last very long either. I think it's going to collapse pretty quickly. They had a day to shut down today, and all over France, they shut things down. It was pretty crazy. They had 80,000 law enforcement officers out ready to arrest people before noon. They already arrested 200 people around the country for violating the law, for burning tires and things like that, and putting up barriers. Pretty crazy, but. Yeah, so back to Charlie Kirk. I mean,
Right.
I think a lot of us are just gobsmacked. I think that's the word. I won't say we're in shock, but I think we're just gobsmacked at the events of today. I mean, I really can't believe it's real because I received a phone call from one of my moderators who's here in the UK and who's always online. And within moments of it happening, he called me and I missed that call back. He goes, Charlie Kirk just got shot. I'm like, what? Okay, and I went looking for it. I mean, I'm just utterly gobsmacked that this happened. I mean, this isn't like George Wallace, segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation always, where somebody might be inclined to want to shoot somebody for something like that.
Right.
This is some dude who went on college campuses and got people fired up to talk about politics in the country and get engaged. And for that, he was murdered. Jeez.
They couldn't
Right.
shut him up, man. So they did the worst. You know, I predict obviously we've seen it with Trump. Somebody tried to take Trump out, and we found him behind bulletproof glass at the next event. And it looks like anybody who's got any kind of fame or notoriety, because we did skip over the fact that a lot of influencers on social media have also been targeted for swatting. You know.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah.
Mhm.
Tim Pool, number one, but I start to wonder if he doesn't set that up himself. It's
Right,
happening.
for attention. But seriously,
he-
I think Candace Owens, anybody getting out there now is going to have to take into consideration for some kind of protective barrier like bulletproof glass to prevent this from happening to them.
Well, of course, Candace Owens was closely associated with Turning Point for a long time. They had a bit of a
Right.
fall a couple of years ago, and I can see why, because her anti-Semitic comments probably played a role in that. But
Right.
Tim Pool tonight apparently had over 100,000 people watching his X or his YouTube or something like that. It was a huge crowd watching him tonight. I don't get the appeal of Tim Pool. I'm not speaking ill of him. I'm just saying I don't get the appeal. But he spoke about things tonight, and he spoke about Charlie Kirk. It's guys, it's just horrific. And the way it happened, it wasn't like someone got shot in the chest and then went to hospital and died. I mean,
Right.
in the jugular. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was-
There was no way to save him. I'm just wondering if anybody on his detail had, medical training. As I imagine, there are probably some veterans on there who probably do and knew immediately what to do as far as, grabbing the jugular, hopefully to try to pinch it off. Maybe that's what kept him alive just a little bit longer, maybe.
That's what they must have done, was clamped it or something.
Gave
but
him,
guys, but you saw the video. I mean, that they.
it was a lot of blood. Yeah, it was.
He's not. You knew as soon as you saw it hit.
Yeah, I knew
there was no wonder why he went.
It was the bright red blood, right? That was coming
arterial.
out of the artery bleeding.
It was
because it was oxygenated. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, he's dead at that point. But somebody who had some awesome training probably, gave him some sort of chance, honestly.
Exactly. That must be the case. But then not to be morose, but my thought was that who maybe staunched the blood. I don't know. Does blood come up the other side of your neck to your brain as well, or is it just that one? I don't know.
Both sides. Yeah, you got carotid and you got the what is it? The carotid artery and the jugular.
That's okay. That's probably good then. So he was still getting blood to the brain, but because the only way to stop that would just put pressure down and stop it completely until you can get someone. It's just look. This is. I mean, we are about to celebrate our 250th anniversary, the greatest country in history, and the country has fallen apart because of Democrats for the last 30 years, and Republicans haven't done anything to save the country until Trump came along.
And this is where, this is about the time of the show where I say you have establishment Republicans at all levels, and you see them, they've been able to stay in power and in charge because they jumped on the coattails of Trump. And we didn't, at the local, state level, and of course, federal level, kick a lot of these sycophants out. You know what I mean? I'm talking about the establishment sycophants, not Donald Trump sycophants, but establishment people who are going to do whatever they can. They're going to say whatever. They have access to the money. They're going to do whatever they can to remain in power, to include getting on Trump's coattails. Once he was out of office, you saw a lot of them starting to do the whispers, but some of them knew he was coming back, so they held their fire. But once he's out of office after this next term, whose coattails are they going to jump on? Which bandwagon are they going to or gravitate to? These are the people that we don't need in public office. And also, whenever it comes to say local office, state level office, if you're afraid of that person, what they may actually do if you speak up about them, or you want to have your grievance heard, but you're afraid that they may reprise against you, guess what? That's the wrong person to have in public office. Need to kick them out. And you have the opportunity coming up. Probably in a few short months, you're going to have early voting starting. 2026 is just around the corner.
It is. Hey, John, I've got on my YouTube channel a larger audience than usual for this time of evening. And I suspect we probably do on our radio listening audience. Maybe it's a good time to remind folks that we're actually on the radio, and that's what we're here for.
Well, we could do that since we're at the bottom of the hour there, Chris. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to WSMN 1590 on your AM dial and WSMN 95.3 on your FM dial. And if you happen to be running into the house, carrying your groceries, and think, wow, I don't want to miss any more of this, you can catch us at wsmn.live.
There you go. I love it.
Or on our individual social media accounts, like Todd, myself, and John. So like the Truckers Independent Broadcasting Network, you can catch us there. You can catch us on Colonel Chris Wyatt, which Triple Digits watching tonight. That's pretty cool. That's rare that we have that. But obviously it's because of this horrific assassination of Charlie Kirk tonight. My concern, guys, is that somebody on our side of the aisle is going to go too far. And there have been people, in my view, that have been trying to push this country towards a civil war for the past 5 years, at least. And this is the sort of thing that could do it. I see the stupid comments from these commentators on CNN and BBC and also on MSNBC earlier talking about trying to conflate this murder, this assassination, with those who stormed the Capitol building on January 6th. I'm sorry. Did you watch the footage of those people going in the building? 98% of them walked in the building. Yes, a few people stormed in, but if they'd actually had a police presence there, and I was present, I have the video footage to show you how lame the police presence was. I mean, you don't put up bicycle racks to stop a crowd. You don't erect a television tower in front of where the police are going to stand so people can climb up on top of it because it wasn't locked and throw water bottles down on top of you. Give me a break. You don't send cops out with bicycle helmets and batons instead of firearms, and it's the whole thing was a setup of greatest proportion here of either stupidity by Nancy Pelosi or they intentionally wanted somebody to do something, and they got it. But most of those people walked in the building. It doesn't excuse their behavior. They committed a misdemeanor, and that should be sanctioned for that. But they try to conflate January 6th and people walking in the Capitol building, which wasn't torched, which wasn't damaged, wasn't ripped down, wasn't defaced, with the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. It's just sick to see someone's trying to do that.
No. Well, there were a bunch of idiots, and I actually know one, a person I went to the same high school I went to, a few years younger than me. He actually beat up a police officer, and he got a pardon. But we don't. That's nowhere near the same as actually shooting somebody with a gun in the neck, for crying out loud. Now, I agree. The person who committed this violence should pay for that crime, and he shouldn't have gotten a pardon for it. But that pales in comparison to shooting somebody, for crying out loud.
There've been cases, and with all due respect to law enforcement, and I mean no, disrespect to them at all. But there's been people I've known of that were there that did not go into the Capitol building, were there in the park area and been attacked by law enforcement officers. And I'm not talking about, they were just pushed or something. I'm talking about been attacked. So sometimes, in the heat of moment, sometimes law enforcement officers can go too far too.
Right. No, it's true.
No. Look. Every organization has a bad apple or people that make stupid mistakes. The military, that's why we have incarceration. We have facilities to imprison people who break the rules. Thankfully in the military, the rate of criminal activity is much lower than general society. But nonetheless, every organization has bad apples, and so the police will have a few bad apples here and there. Mm-hmm. But by and large, most of the 800,000 or so law enforcement officials in the United States are law-abiding, good people who mean well. So I got a comment here from Paul VN, my channel, saying we're sort of on the radio, with a big smile. Thank you, gentlemen. Good to hear your calm approach and comments on this very disturbing event. It is a very disturbing event, folks. Absolutely disturbing event.
Yeah, It is.
Yep, absolutely. And it's one of those things like things that you don't think you're going to see in your lifetime necessarily. You think it's other countries. You go back to 1968, a lot of assassinations in our country, in 68, Martin Luther King as an example, RFK, go back to 63, JFK, you had a lot of assassinations in this country, attempted assassinations, high profile. And then all of a sudden,
George Wallace,
he attempted assassination, right? But then all of a sudden, And then all of a sudden, you fast forward to Donald Trump, a couple of years ago, gets shot in Butler, Pennsylvania. This person sitting outside of his golf club about to try to shoot him, take another shot at him. We realize that occasionally there are people that try to do things to presidents, but actually getting shots off, in our lifetime. I know Gerald Ford was shot at a couple of times within the same week. But
Squeaky
you
Fromm
don't
didn't
really see
shoot.
it
She just pointed a gun at him, but she got arrested.
Right. Well, you know what I'm saying, right? There was two incidents within a week. But anyway, and actually a Marine actually intervened on that one and stopped her from being able to get a
Yeah,
shot
but I mean,
off.
what a legacy for Squeaky Fromm. She was a Manson clan girl,
Right.
and then she tried to kill Gerald Ford. That's just, she made herself famous in more ways than one.
Right.
Michelle Mayer in my chat is saying 1790, do your homework. 3,100,000 people. That was the population of the United States in the first official census in 1790. Is that the homework you want me to do?
Yeah.
I don't know what he was referring to.
Yeah, but anyway, we don't expect to see these types of things on a regular in our country. An occasional thing, yes, but now we're seeing it quite more regular in the past several years. I mean, just going after members of Congress, senators, whatever, and they think that this is okay behavior. It's not. It's not normal.
The thing about it, guys, is we're up to here in 2025. We're up to 356 mass shootings. You don't hear about every one of them, and the last one happened yesterday. So there's a lot of crazy stuff going on with this, and I thought Barack Obama, when he forced the Affordable Care Act on our throats, that it was going to address the mental illness in the United. Remember, he said that this is going to help the mental illness in the United States, and we're going to reduce gun violence and yada yada. And they didn't do a thing, not a thing.
It's because the Unaffordable Care Act was a scam for the insurance companies, and they didn't realize they were screwing themselves over. So now they have buyer's remorse. But all the Affordable Care Act did was push 20 million working Americans off of health insurance and bring 10 to 12 million illegal aliens into the healthcare system for free that we pay for. And so working class families got screwed, plus the rates went up because you couldn't get rid of people who had pre-existing conditions. And we got nothing new. The Affordable Care Act did not bring us new hospitals, new clinics, new surgical procedures, new nurses, new medicines, nothing new, nothing additional. All it did was pervert who pays for it in an effort to turn our country to a socialist paradise of misery and suffering for all. A country where thrift, hard work, entrepreneurialism, drive, and dedication don't matter. Just sit on your bum and collect your check from the state. Oh, which means you're collecting from those who are actually working, you parasites.
So
the people that you're critiquing. John, can I jump in real quick? You said that, the last mass shooting was yesterday, but 3 teenagers remain in critical condition in Colorado, Evergreen, Colorado.
There's a school shooting.
A mass shooting doesn't require fatality. It just means that 3 people were.
No, I'm saying it happened, today, by the way.
This happened almost simultaneously.
I thought it did. I'm sorry. It did happen today. 9/10.
No, you mentioned yesterday. I just wanted to point out.
There was one yesterday as well, I believe.
Sure, I think. Yeah.
So real quick, guys, Legal Alien says on TikTok there's a guy that posted that Charlie was going to be at his university today and hoped someone would evaporate Charlie. A second post, he said something was going to happen. If you got that, man, create the receipts and get that over the FBI. I mean, that could be a lead if they has beforehand knowledge and stuff. Don't waste that opportunity if you can do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, there's a number of comments coming in from viewers here, those watching the program online rather than listening on the radio. One of them coming in from Alan says, our biggest problem is that children are being taught critical race theory, and there have been he's been fortunate that not one of his sons has grasped onto it. His god dogs are a totally different story. Yeah, I mean, that Common Core, the lack of patriotism, the lack of volunteerism, all these things contribute. The fatherless families, 78% of Black children are born illegitimately to single parents, 45% of Hispanic children, 25% of white children, 9% of Asians. That is a crisis beyond epic proportions. Shouldn't be more than 4 or 5% of children born illegitimately. All children should be raised in loving, two two-parent family. And it's okay. You LGBTQ crowd can't come attack me. I said a two-parent family. I didn't say a man and a woman. I didn't say a woman and a woman, a man and a man. I said a two-parent loving family to split the responsibilities and duties for parenting and disciplining and mentoring and teaching your children. You need two parents who did effectively. Trust me, having grown up in all kinds of circumstances, I can confirm you need both. By all rights, I ought to be a pimp, a drug dealer, or some sort of gangster, but I'm not.
He's all those things, baby.
Yeah, he's all
That's
those
right.
things,
That's right.
all
That's right.
wrapped up in one.
I'm not one of them. I'm all of them. Yeah.
So
Not one of
somebody's bringing up. I don't know if I want to butcher her name or not. She's Ukrainian. Irina Zarutska, knifed in the neck here on the 26th of August. Another brutal attack. That one was recorded. She, petite young woman, gets on a train, boards a train, walks over, collects a seat. Right behind her happens to be a large man. And it was really weird because it looked like he had just woken up the way he did it, and opens up a folding knife, and knifes her in the neck. Same thing. What is this with this neck thing? I don't know, but horrible.
Well, I mean,
very horrible.
Thank goodness we banned guns. Otherwise, that young lady would be alive if we had not banned. What? No, exactly. No, listen. So here's another thing that's been going on for years. So I love this because the Hodge twins, who are mixed race, they always put these things out. They put an image out the other day of a photograph of a black guy, and it says a white man. That's how the police describe the person looking for a white man. He's clearly a black man. This stuff happens all the time. Falsely labeling. If you look at the persons who are booked in, oftentimes they'll be white or black, and they'll be listed as white. Not mixed race, but clearly black, listed as white, so to skew the crime statistics to make it look like more white people are committing crimes. Listen, this is not an anti-black thing. Black Americans are wonderful people, by and large. 99% of them, I would hope, are wonderful people of faith, people who work hard. They try very hard. Some have had to deal with very difficult circumstances in life. Some have had very easy lives like anyone else. But the reality is this. Most violent crime in this country is committed by just 12% of the population. When you consider that black men commit 51% of the murders in the U.S., they're only 6.5% of the population. 6.5% of the population kills over 50% of the people who are murdered every year in this country. Now, why do we cover that statistic up? Because, well, this liberal white guilt. Folks, you don't fix the country by covering up things and lying about it. You tell the truth. Otherwise, when people find out, they just get really angry. I remember a few years ago when a 50-year-old gentleman who lived in New York and Syracuse, had lived in the same neighborhood his entire life. He had some developmental issues, but he was functional. And I don't know, he's maybe slightly autistic or something. And he went to the market, came back to his house in the street where he lived with all his neighbors who were black and white, got along with him. And two teenagers broke in, tied him to his lazy boy, poured lighter fluid all over him, then lit him on fire.
Right.
He managed to break his bonds and stumble into the street where someone saw him and put the flames out, but he had burns over 95% of his body, third-degree burns. He died a horrible death in pain 4 days later in the hospital. The media failed to report that they were black teens. And they just said it was a home invasion. They didn't say the horrific circumstance. I had to do massive research to find the facts of that case. And only local media actually talked about that. National media refused to talk. Meanwhile, they were talking about other things. Remember how they said George Zimmerman was a white man?
Yeah,
but he's more of a brown Hispanic than a white man. And they also said that Trayvon Martin was unjustly murdered when in fact he assaulted Zimmerman. We found out later on. Remember Ferguson, Missouri, hands up, never happened.
Don't shoot,
never
never
happened.
Yep.
And also, of course, George Floyd was murdered by a man who he wasn't murdered by because the coroner said his death was a cause of a fentanyl overdose, not a chokehold. Yet Derek Chauvin sits in prison as a convicted murderer for using an authorized, trained police chokehold that the police department lied about in their trial. It's just it's unbelievable. In a couple of years, did you see the thing in Ohio where the two police officers approached a car for a wanted felon? There was an outstanding warrant for him, and the male police officer came up on the passenger side, leaned in to get his information, and he started to drive away. The police officer, the female on the driver's side, warned him to stop. He didn't. She pulled to reach for her taser, and she reached for her fire service weapon and fired and killed him. And she went to prison for negligent homicide or something like that, negligent whatever, or involuntary manslaughter. She went to prison. Her life completely destroyed. A long-serving police officer because in the heat of the moment she grabbed the wrong weapon. Well, the architect of that death was the black man who failed to follow the directions of the police officer. And by the way, she was justified in using deadly force because he was dragging a police officer to his death. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
I could go on for
absolutely.
hours and hours and hours here. This is not anti-black. This is the truth.
Yeah,
And people don't
just
like
post
the
the
truth
facts.
because the truth hurts.
I was thinking
Right.
earlier today, Chris, to your point, I was thinking about, oh man, must have been like 30 years ago, and black neighborhoods. And they were the men of that neighborhood that were attempting to take back their neighborhood, beating trash cans and stuff and marching down the street. This is our neighbor. These are our children. We're taking it back, sort of thing, doing a chant, trying to be threatening to the gang violence and the gangsters out there that were creating these havocs in their streets, So it does happen there. It happens a lot. But to your point, there's a lot of good people too. We don't fail to recognize them, and we've seen them in the open. We've seen them make attempts to better their societies too.
Well, their societies are our societies. These are Americans we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, but look, there is a concerted effort to cover up what's been happening and what's going on in this country. Watch a commercial on network television. White men are an extinct species. The only people who appear on our commercials are blacks, an occasional Asian, plenty of homosexuals, and white women if they're married to a black man in the commercial. White men, it used to be a couple years ago, white men only got to do the erectile dysfunction ads. But now, apparently, guys, did you know that white men don't get liver cancer? They don't need Skyrizia. They don't have diabetes. They don't get erectile dysfunction. Only black people get those things now. I mean, based on the commercials, they're the only ones that appear in them.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That doesn't bother me so much because I don't like TV anyway.
And that and every other commercial is a weight loss commercial, right? And they're all dancing around doing all this stuff. It's like if you were doing all that activity, you probably wouldn't be as big. I don't know. I'm not making fun of people who are big. I'm not doing that. But I'm just saying, like, how is it? The injection will be the savior of me. It's like that's going to probably cause some other problems, liver cancer or whatever else it's going to cause down the road. How about a little bit of exercise, a little bit of self-control? I get people have issues with trying to lose weight. I'm not making fun, but injecting yourself with a chemical is probably not going to be your saving grace here.
Todd, it's just a thyroid problem.
Right? Yeah, he's got a thyroid problem. Yeah.
Anyway, we're not trying to fat shame people here, but
no,
but I mean, you get my point. 12% of the population and 95% of the commercials. Same with TV shows. Look, I've lived in neighborhoods that were almost entirely black growing up. I've lived all over Africa, and I'll just be honest with you. Whenever I go to Yellowstone, whenever I go hiking to Katy National Park, whenever I go walking the Appalachian Trail, I pass lots of people, but I would say less than 2% of the time do I pass black Americans. Yet every automobile commercial with an SUV climbing Mount McKinley on television is a black couple.
Yeah, because you're just gonna go take the Denali out to Mount Denali, right? Yeah, I don't think so. Climb it. Not gonna happen.
The funny thing about what you're talking about, Chris, is every time I go, you see a liberal site or something, they're always talking about, well, things need to be fair and balanced. But they're with DEI, they're always trying to tip the balance of the scales in a total opposing direction.
Well, again, I mean, if things are supposed to be fair and balanced, and if we have to do things based on percentages, then I would like to see 75% of the NFL and the NBA be white instead of 87% black NBA and 65% of the NFL black. No, I don't really care. I mean, I just want the best product on the pitch, and if that's the best product, that's fine. But I don't want to be lectured to by people that are idiots because they want to play this game about the past. I wasn't in the past. I didn't benefit from the past. If I did, I wouldn't have had to grow up on food stamps and free lunches in school and, not having varsity jackets and walking 15 miles home from baseball practice. So I don't want to hear this nonsense about like white privilege and you benefited from this, that, and the other. I, just like any poor black American or poor Native American, had to apply for federal aid and student aid to get enough money to go to university. When I applied myself and I earned my way through life, and everything I've done, I've earned. So they can take that and shove it where the sun don't shine.
I walk by rich black people and I think to myself, hey, he got my white privilege.
Yeah, he's got my white privilege. Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan got my white privilege. I should be able to dunk like that, right? And be able to win NBA championships. He's got my white privilege.
I have to give it to black folks, man. I'll tell you what, it is merit based in the NFL. I think they work hard for it.
Yeah, well,
exactly.
It should be.
And the NBA. It's just that I don't like the style of playing the NBA. I like the much better days with Bird and Johnson.
Oh, absolutely.
And that was a much more exciting NBA. And ever since Jordan retired, it's just been the same. They all look the same. They all play the same. When I say they look the same, they're all the same height. height. They all have the same build, and a bunch of them are punks, and that's not fun to watch.
Yeah,
No, so
and
I've
nobody's
just lost
playing
interest in it.
defense. Nobody's playing
Yeah, exactly.
defense.
I mean,
You get
142 to
close.
138. Come on.
You get close to the star player, it's a foul. You know, you get near LeBron. If he decides to flop, that's a foul automatically. You know, he
Yeah.
gets to be in the locker room.
To,
He's
to, to
flopping.
be
The
fair,
refs favorites. Is that what you're saying?
to
Well,
be fair,
he was
we
the
did
NBA
have
glory boy.
we did have the Jordan rules. Anybody that breathed on Michael Jordan, it was a foul. He had more free throws than you can imagine. So, but yeah, anyway. So, look, these people it just really, really have lost their way. And whoever is responsible for the assassination of Charlie Kirk today, they are going to rue this action. I love what Governor Cox had to say. I want to remind people that Utah still has a death penalty. Ho, ho, ho.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
made it known. Yeah.
And you don't let them plea out. I mean, if you got them dead to rights, so to speak, I mean, don't let them plea out. Force them to go to court. I mean, they'll probably take a plea if they get caught. They'll be like, "Oh, I'll admit to it." You know, don't
No
put me to
plea
death.
deals for them.
Crazy. It was the hormones I was taking for my transition. But one
Proving
of
what
my
Charlie Kirk was actually saying. You know, it should be funny.
Zandre De Beer, a viewer popped in on my channel and said, "Good morning," because that's South Africa time. Am I the only one who doesn't know who Charlie Kirk is? Please don't judge. And why was he killed? We won't judge you, Zandre. You live in South Africa. Why would you know who Charlie Kirk is? Charlie Kirk is a young man who started a movement called Turning Point USA, which was focused on getting young Americans in the conservative movement to be more vocal, more active in politics, and get engaged in running campaigns, running for office, things like that. Turning Point USA allied themselves with President Trump. It was a group focused on people under the age of 30 and a big effort on college campuses to debate and talk about the issues that are important today. Today, at a college campus in Utah, with thousands of his supporters there and people who are detractors to ask him questions, because that's what he did. You come up, ask me a question, I'll answer it, and they have a debate. Kind of like Speaker's Corner, except a lot more than a dozen people, thousands. And so Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck and passed away at the hospital sometime after that. It's a political assassination. So, Andrea, there's a little bit you're up to speed on that, who he was.
Yep. There you go. In a nutshell. Absolutely.
Yep. Well, we have the Japanese former prime minister who was running for office again, who was assassinated a couple years ago. Remember that? And we've had South Koreans. Yeah. That's the guy who was murdered.
Yeah.
And we've had I always say Abe, so that's when you said
Abe,
Abe,
yeah,
threw me
Abe,
off. Yeah. I don't know if I'm right. That's how I always said it. And then we've had some South Korean politicians murdered. They tried to murder Dutch politicians. Garrett Wilders, they tried to kill him. It's sick, but I mean, it's something that we haven't seen a lot of in the United States since the 1960s, but it's back now, and it needs to stop.
Yep, I agree with you. Well, where do we go from here? What do you think is going to be the fallout? I mean, is it going to be just a lot of social media rhetoric? Is it going to be increased violence from the left? Is people on the right going to go out and look for some sort of odd screwed up retribution? What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, number one, people on the right are going to venerate Charlie Kirk, and some people are going to try to elevate him to sainthood, which I don't think is necessarily deserved. He's well loved, but that's going to happen. And the left is going to piss and moan about it and speak evil about him and try like the nonsense he did today, like he says hate speech, which isn't hate speech. That's what's going to happen in the immediate aftermath of this. I think beyond that, this will galvanize people for next year's election. I think that the assassination of Charlie Kirk will, for the Democrats, have a perverse effect of hurting their chances, because this will be a rallying cry for young conservatives and older conservatives alike. They nearly killed Trump, and that played a major role in Trump winning that election. There's no doubt about that. People don't talk about that, but there isn't just because Joe Biden was senile and corrupt. It isn't just because Kamala Harris is dumb as a box of rocks. Trump won in part because he survived that assassination attempt, and he stood up and defiantly said, "Fight, fight, fight," and that inspired a nation. So many times today I heard people say, that's it. I'm tired of this. I can't vote Democrat anymore. Look at these people ghoulishly excited that he got shot, and then when he died, they're celebrating his death. It's sick, and I think this is going to. There was a question about whether Republicans could win the midterms. I think this is a done deal now. I think the assassination of Charlie Kirk will play a major role in the Republicans not only retaining the House, but increasing their lead and maybe gaining a seat or two in the Senate, which will be harder this time around because it's not as favorable election cycle for them in the Senate. But this is not going to go well for them. And much like the death of Andrew Breitbart, which was an assassination, but he had a bad heart. He died much younger than he should have. But Andrew Breitbart dying, he's still venerated as a hero of the conservative movement. And of course, Breitbart, unlike he was very different than Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk has always been a conservative, but Breitbart was a leftist who found his way to the conservative side.
But Breitbart, he basically taken away from the mainstream media, allowed people like us to come out to the masses and talk to people directly. People don't have to go to the mainstream media anymore. They can come directly to the podcasts or radio shows, whatever. They don't have to listen to what ABC, NBC, whatever says.
Right. Well, guys, I won't be around for the second hour once again because I'm overseas. So I want to thank you. And I'm going to leave my stream running for those who want to stay to talk about this very important issue, to listen to you guys talk for the next hour. Last week I shut it down. I realized I shut down my viewers. They might have missed the rest of the show.
Right.
But if anybody wants to stay and listen, my social media, you can stick around on X and stick around on YouTube. But I'm off to hit the rack. So I want to thank you guys. And my thoughts and prayers to the family of Charlie Kirk and to the conservative movement. Fair winds and smooth sailing to Charlie Kirk. And I offer this salute.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick break, top of the hour break. We'll be back in a few. Stay tuned.
WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM Nashua. Listen, watch, and stream at wsmn.live.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Dave Packer. Two former presidents with statements following what law enforcement's calling today's targeted shooting at Utah Valley University that left conservative political activist Charlie Kirk dead. Former President George W. Bush saying today a young man was murdered in cold blood while expressing his political views. It happened on a college campus where the open exchange of opposing ideas should be sacrosanct. And former President Bill Clinton saying, I hope we all go through some serious introspection and redouble our efforts to engage and debate passionately yet peacefully. Kirk was speaking outdoors to students on campus when he was shot. Utah Governor Spencer Cox.
This is a dark day for our state. It's a tragic day for our nation. And I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination.
Cox says that a person of interest is in custody and another person has been booked on obstruction of justice charges. This is ABC News. Bond is set at $1 million for a Houston man charged with killing an 11-year-old boy who rang a doorbell and ran away.
The centuries-old prank has many names. 11-year-old Julian Guzman of Houston called it Ding Dong Ditch.
Today's world, sadly, what were juvenile pranks and foolishness has become more dangerous.
Louis Unglesby is an attorney in Louisiana, where 53% of people have guns.
And unfortunately, a lot of people that come to folks' homes have guns.
A combination that he says can turn a prank into a deadly encounter. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Mark David Chapman has been denied parole for the 14th time, according to New York prison officials. The 70-year-old who shot and killed John Lennon in 1980 will next be up for parole in 2027. Scientists say NASA's Mars rover Perseverance has uncovered rocks in a dry river channel that could hold potential signs of ancient microscopic life, but in-depth analysis needs to be conducted before any conclusions can be drawn. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind: to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my two sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-549-8866. 800-549-8866. 800-549-8866.
Continuing the legacy started in 1904, Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument Incorporated continues to provide the same high-quality monument, custom headstone, and stoneworking craftsmanship today that they built their reputation on over 100 years ago. Servicing Nashua Nashua, New Hampshire, as well as nearby areas in Massachusetts, such as Lowell, Billerica, Chelmsford, and beyond. From creating custom monuments to memorialize, to landscaping and granite work or restorative services, each job is done to your satisfaction and is backed by decades of experience and integrity. If you're thinking about stonework, think Roger Pellerin of Gate City Monument. Visit online at gatecitymonument.com. Stop by and meet Roger at 321 West Hollis Street in Nashua, or call 603-883-7141. That's 603-883-7141. Gate City Monument, memorials of distinction for people who care.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just now tuning in, you're listening to Common Sense Conservatives right here, WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 FM. You can check us live at wsmn.live each and every Wednesday night. Same time, same place as always. Todd, Donald Trump signed an executive order to change the Department of Defense back to the Department of War. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that was necessarily needed. And one of his statements that he made was, well, the Department of War reflects the times that we live in. It's like, do we need to live in times of more war? I mean, do we not have enough of that? Internally, you were assassinating people who just speak up and say things that you don't like. We're seeing wars endlessly in Ukraine, the Middle East, in everywhere. The Department of Defense was the idea of the change, the name change was, we're to reflect the fact that we don't need endless wars. I mean, you just came out of World War II, for crying out loud. The National Security Act of 1947 created the Department of Defense. You came out of World War II, the biggest, the most massive, total war in the history of humanity. And now we're talking about, let's get back to that mindset. No, we should defend, be ready to defend against, say, aggressors like Japan, Nazis, Soviets, whatever the case may be, Middle Eastern threats, non-state actors. We should be able to defend ourselves, and then of course project power if needed. But Department of War, I don't get the fact that we need to change the name at this point. Also, let's be clear: the Department of War was essentially what became the Department of the Army. Okay, they just basically created the Department of Defense out of thin air, basically incorporating the Department of the Army or Department of War, and created the Department of the Army. Created the Department of the Air Force, took that away from the Army. The Department of the Navy became part of the Department of Defense, and he created all these different entities under one umbrella. Versus them being separate cabinet level entities like they were beforehand. More wieldy this way. And a name change, is arbitrary, but let's focus on defending the nation versus going around fighting endless wars. I think that's the wrong mindset.
Yeah, it looks like Congress was trying to change the name back to Department of War or something in that regard, weren't they?
I don't know what the fascination, what the need was. I'm like, you think about how much it's going to cost us to just change the name. I'm like, what's the point? Let's not waste money. Things are humming along as Department of Defense, right? We're getting woke out of the building as best we can, right? Getting it out of the ranks. Let's focus on doing that, completing that mission, for crying out loud, and ensuring that it never comes back. And focus on defending the nation and support and defending the Constitution. It's not something that's got me, worked up at night, I can tell you, but I'm like, but my question is why? What was the real point of that, and how much money is it going to cost?
That's a good point. That's pretty insightful. That's a good point. Yeah, I don't know why they want to return it back to Department of War. I'm like you. I don't make sense. I'm fine with Department of Defense, because that's our standpoint, isn't it? The United States, our standpoint is when we engage, we're on a defensive stance. We don't take offense, we take defense. And we get the job done.
Although we could point to probably many thousands of times where the U.S. has been on the offensive, and we probably didn't need to be. But that's besides the point. Every nation does that, everybody makes good decisions and make bad decisions,
Yeah.
It's up to the American people to stand up and speak truth to power, though.
But
and not allow our nation's military to be used in such an arbitrary manner as it has in many instances. Vietnam is an example. The quote Gulf of Tonkin, which never happened apparently. But all of a sudden it led to 50-some thousand Americans being killed, and who knows how many hundreds of thousands that were wounded physically and psychologically after the fact.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were invited to Vietnam. We weren't. It wasn't like we just went over there with the Vietnam president.
Right.
It was kind of interesting because I read the original letter. It's online. You can find it. And
No,
when you read
and
it, it's like in handwriting, and it's kind of like because it's broken. It's kind of written in broken English and stuff.
right. And
It's
I
kind of
understand
interesting to see
Eisenhower
it.
sent in advisors, and Kennedy enhanced the advisors, and then of course you had Johnson go in there and just blow it the heck up, and then sadly Nixon, went in there promising to end it, and then he just muddled the whole thing up. I just don't
Well,
get it.
you
And,
can't
and
you can't have a
Congress
money
was
generating war like that
right,
and
of
just shut
course.
it down. That's a good business there,
Well, I
Todd.
get that. Yeah, that's true. Congress was no help for sure, because you got to think
Yeah.
about the defense industry. Eisenhower warned us against the military industrial complex. And of course,
Uh-huh.
by that point, we had a full complex that they needed to make money, and members of Congress needed employment in their districts. So, guess what? Hey, Vietnam sounds like a good thing. They're not, in no way was Vietnam going to be able to take over the United States. In no way. They couldn't project power outside of the, they're not too far off of their shores. So they're not going to come to the United States and take us out. But they had they had this whole idea of this domino theory, right? That they sold to the American people, to try to rally people. But at that point, Americans had moved on from the greatest generation fighting in World War II. At this point, it was the baby boomers who were like, why do we need endless wars, for crying out loud, especially in a place that has no threat to us directly in any way? And and I could see the counter to the Vietnam. I appreciate everybody who served there, but did we need to send people there to die needlessly? If we weren't there to actually fight it to a conclusion where we walk away as the victors, which we could have rather easily, if we're not going to fight it that way, what's the point of us fighting there?
Absolutely.
You know.
You got to get the job done. You can't.
Right, and there was no real reason for a lot of these men to die there, for crying out loud. I mean, you escalated what the domino theory. South Vietnam welcomed the North end for the most part. I mean, most of the people out in the fields had no care who the government is. They just want to be left alone, right? And think about China right now today. People that are out in far flung China, you think that they know what's going on in the nation's capital? Do they know that they're communists? Probably not, some of them.
So tomorrow's 9/11. It's an
Right.
anniversary date, as for the 2001 attacks. Have you seen anything about threat assessments towards it? You never hear it like you used to, but I'm kind of wondering if there's any threat assessments. I really didn't get to look it up.
Yeah, I'm
but-
sure there's been stuff that's been done. It's probably not really talked about. And of course, with Charlie Kirk being assassinated, I mean, no one's even looking at that now. What are people going to be talking about tomorrow on 9/11? Is it going to be Charlie Kirk or the thousands of people who were martyred on 9/11 or killed on, assassinated on 9/11?
So the what is this? Department of Homeland Security put out a bulletin. The ongoing Iran conflict is causing a heightened threat environment in the United States. The level of cyber attacks against U.S. networks by pro-Iranian hacktivists are likely, and cyber actors affiliated with the Iranian government may conduct attacks against U.S. networks. Iran also has a long-standing commitment to target U.S. government officials, its views as responsible for the death of an Iranian military commander, which we know.
Right.
The likelihood of violent extremists in the homeland independently mobilizing to violence in response to the conflict would likely increase if Iranian leadership issued a religious ruling calling for retaliatory violence against targets in the homeland. Multiple recent homeland terrorist attacks have been motivated by anti-Semitic or anti-Israel sentiment, and the ongoing Israel-Iran conflict could contribute to U.S.-based individuals plotting additional attacks. U.S.-based, that's sleeper cells. So that's something, I just wanted to bring up tonight for those listening, because it's something to think about, even if you're not in the United States. There's been a history of attacks against embassies abroad and any other government officials, military bases, things like that.
Right.
So if you're going to federal buildings, then you might just want to, keep that tucked away in the back of your mind. Just be aware, keep your head on a swivel, more or less. Look for abnormalities and stuff, because we don't see a big threat for 9/11 like we used to, but with ongoing issues in the Middle East and Palestine and Israel, it wouldn't surprise me if tomorrow being the anniversary day, if something did happen, I don't think I'd be any more surprised. And
Right.
what happened today is, like Chris said, it's not shocking. It's just it's disturbing that it happened. But this is what we expect from the liberal left. And I'm saying liberal left. I don't think it'd be anybody from the right that did the events of today. And these guys aren't, they're unhinged. They're not wrapped too tight, some of these people.
Right. Right. And it's funny is it's, I don't mean like funny, like hysterical, but in an ironic way that it's the same people that are, talking about the right shouldn't have guns. People, we don't need guns, get rid of the Second Amendment, are the ones that are actually committing violence against other people with guns. If you notice that.
Yeah. There's been a lot of people pointing out a trend with trans people now.
Right. And I think maybe Charlie had made mention of that at times and pointed things out, but you think about this, as I talked about putting chemicals in your body for crying out loud, like I was kind of joking earlier about the weight loss stuff, Ozempic or whatever, you're putting chemicals in your body and relying on it to do something for you. There's going to be some sort of side effect, right? And generally, there's usually some sort of side effect down the road that we don't know about. Maybe it doesn't get everybody, maybe it gets some people, whatever. But the left, there's going to be a side effect at some point with the nonsense that you spew, the violence that you spew. There's going to be a backlash at some point. There's going to be a reaction.
There was a lot of discussion about psychotropic drugs and stuff like that.
Right, and that's what I was going. That's what
children, and they're in developmental ages when they're using these things, and then they get to be 18, 20, 21, and they no longer qualify insurance. And it has to do with a lot of painkillers they give kids too. They do the same sorts of things, and they just stone cold take them off the medication, and there's no weaning them off it. It's just, hey, sorry about your luck, kid. Go figure it out. And this is why we got a lot of heroin addicts on the streets now. Is due to prescription medications. And I think a lot of it too is, I think it's a combination of things. It's that, I think it is that, and they poo-pooed that idea in 2012 when Obama was putting in, people were claiming this, maybe even earlier, people were claiming, making these claims, and the liberal left's going, oh, there's no evidence of that. Genius. It doesn't require a full-blown multi-million-dollar study.
Which is kind of what I was going for, going at there, the chemicals they put in people's bodies whenever they're transitioning, if you will. There's no such thing as transition. You're just getting a lot of chemicals. You're making yourself look slightly different. You're still a male or you're still a female. I'm sorry. There's also the underlying psychological issues that no one's dealing with. Now we're just tossing chemicals on top of it, and you're going to say that there's no reaction whatsoever. There's no downfall. You can just go ahead and do this. Lop off body parts. As you see fit. Everything's good to go. We don't have to treat the underlying psychological issue. And this is a problem in our country. And I think maybe Charlie Kirk was making mention of that, and that was his point. No one's attacking somebody who's trans or somebody who's suffering from, some sort of mental issue. We're not trying to downplay that, but the fact is, you don't treat the mental issue that's underlying, and then you throw chemicals on top of it. You're creating a disaster here that's in the making, and it's not going to be good for the individual. And also, if they do something, try to hurt somebody, absolutely. These things can happen because the person clearly doesn't think clearly to start with, right? There's something not right there. Not making fun of anybody, but then you're not treating that. And then all of a sudden you throw chemicals on top of it, and you're like, oh, if something happens, or it wasn't this, it was the right's rhetoric about it. It's like, no, the person that clearly is not thinking clearly, obviously, So what is it? Is the chemicals, is it the mental issue on top of throwing the chemicals on top of it? What is the issue here?
I think predominantly it's mental issues, to be honest with you. I mean, just logically speaking, yes, chemicals can have an effect, right? I mean, we've seen people that, this medication may cause these types of side effects, and some of them might be some kind of like, fuzziness and thinking or whatever ridiculous it may cause. And I think sometimes they disregard these side effects too. They don't play them up right. And a lot of times it may be a matter of mixing different pills and stuff too. You got to be careful about that.
Any self-medicating and stuff.
People self-medicating. That's a big issue in this country anymore. But I honestly, Todd, I think the biggest thing is you've got weak-minded people in this country. People are susceptible to suggestion, and sometimes it's mild suggestion. So earlier you guys were talking about, I think you made a mention about they keep talking about mass shootings. You're hearing it all the time. I mean, how many did I read out? 356, I think, so far this year. Years ago, they quit telling people when there was an attempted presidential assassination because they don't want copycat offenders, right? And so they stopped telling people who robbed banks. When people robbed banks, they wouldn't give names and, the cool nicknames and stuff, Midnight Bandit or whatever. Because it glorified them, and people want to become copycat offenders. So then they said, well, let's just stop acknowledge them in the media, just start, running them through the criminal system and give them their fair trial and lock them away and not give them the fame and the attention they're seeking. And perhaps you won't get these repeat offenders. But when it comes to these shootings, what do, man? They blast it out there as much as they can. Like they know it's going to cause repeat offenses.
Yeah, well, yeah, and well, actually, they can score political points off of it too.
Yeah, and it's also, if it bleeds, it sells. No pun intended here.
No, but that's true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like mass shootings or major truck. Like a truck has an accident, kills 13 people on the highway. Fuel truck blows up. Yeah, everybody loves that. Everybody wants to see, what's going on over there. Who's having a bad day over there? Not me, right?
Mm-hmm.
People love to see that, and I think it's sad. Maybe it's and I don't know that it's necessarily the media. It's it's human nature to want to look and see the car wreck or whatever and see the carnage.
I think we're got a kind of a morbid curiosity to carnage.
Right.
People will gravitate towards that stuff sometimes. There's a reason why people rubberneck when you're going by an accident on the interstate. If they just keep focusing on the task at hand and stop trying to poke around, it'd be safer. I've seen accidents happen at accidents because somebody was trying to rubberneck and rear-ended somebody else that was stopping to rubberneck or something stupid, or parked on the shoulder. You just look, it's a morbid curiosity, but come on, get over it. Let's go. We're grown-ups here. Do you really want to see somebody else's pain and suffering? I mean, what's it do for you? Nothing.
No, but people have that moment of like, well, I'm glad it's not me. You know what I mean? It's like,
but this
person's over there suffering, and you're sitting there, taking photos and video of it, so you can be the first on social media to put it out there. Come on.
Yeah, that's a new thing today. Hey, I want to be out there like Charlie Kirk. Everybody was running to social media to be the first ones to say Charlie Kirk got shot. It's like,
sure,
okay, great, but I just don't get that.
Well, everybody now has to be the news breaker or the star, of their own story. It's like everybody can't just live their life and go about their daily routine. Everybody has to be a star. It's the whole 15 minutes of fame, right? But everybody thinks that the fact that you have a smart device that you can hold up and do like a little video, that everybody wants to hear what you have to say. Most of it's BS nonsense, and nobody cares. And I mean, and I'm talking about even my own stuff I put out there. I mean, most people probably don't care, right? They're just gonna whatever, I try to put out information that's beneficial to people that that they may want, but here it may not appeal to everybody. But I'm not looking to have my 15 minutes of fame, but you have a lot of people that think that is like. And this can help you reach a lot of people versus trying to get on, say, television or be an actor and actress back in the old days. Now you can make your own content and people may gravitate to it, and you may end up making money off of it. It may not be you become a movie star or TV star, but you're still making money in one way or another, right? And whatever. But everybody thinks they're going to be the big star.
I'm reading this comment from Holden. The first sergeant is saying that while people watch him. Yeah, but the thing about it is, though, we do what we do. If one person watches and listens, one person watches and listens. If a million people watch and listen, we're doing the same thing regardless. We're not doing it for stardom. We just did it for a platform. We're entertained to do it. We like to do it. We enjoy to do it.
We're not making money off of it. We're not trying to brand ourselves and be like, common sense conservatives will be at CPAC this year. Oh, go see our booth,
Well, the thing of it is, Todd, is if anybody went to my profile, what they'd see is we might be posting common sense conservatives. I got about 3 shows I do a week, and those are the ones I'd post. And I didn't even post this one yesterday. I didn't even bother putting it on my personal profile, because I'm done with social media. I really am. I'm sick and tired of social media. I'm here doing a radio show because it's terrestrial. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But again, we get views. It's just we're not doing it because we want the attention. But we see these people that say on X. Okay, I sat there and listened to one of those X spaces, and this guy happens to be very well followed. And he was talking about how he lines things up so he gets post fed into himself. And they were talking about, they said, absolutely, this is the best way to get attention to yourself is you got to be right there, Johnny, in the spot. When a hot item comes out, you got to be the first one to get it out there. You have to be. A lot of people want to make money off X. A lot of people want to make money off YouTube and so on and so forth. And that's well and fine. If you can do it, more power to you. I just don't see chasing. I don't have the time. I'm too busy to be chasing around trying to do that sort of stuff. Oh, you muted yourself?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was checking. Somebody gave a comment saying that our feed is frozen. I'm like, I went and checked it. Sorry, I don't know that it has or not on Facebook, but if it has, I do apologize. But I don't know if we're still on Facebook or not. We may be. That's what I was checking there.
Well, Facebook has been acting up like I did a Patriot Confederation with Billy last night. We had a really
Right.
good show there, by the way. That was fun. And I got a notification we went to go live about Facebook having issues and it may not load up and yada, 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 but working on it. And so, I mean, it happens sometimes with these social media sites.
Right. No, I get that, but that's what I was going for there. But yeah, no, we're not the people that are like every 5 seconds, pulling out the phone, like giving you an update of what they just saw and where they're at, or what makeup tip to, that you should buy this makeup or you should buy this car. It's like everybody wants to be like the guy who gives you I don't know, the reference or the whatever. I don't know. Everybody wants the 15 minutes, and sometimes it's just best to just go about your life. And if you get 15 minutes, you get it. If you don't, it is what it is, because you're going to get frustrated if you're searching for fame or renowned or I don't know. So
I'll tell you what,
don't seek to start. I mean, if it's thrust upon you, sure, by all means, good for you. But but if you end up getting some big platform, then by all means, use it responsibly. But a lot of people just push nonsense. That's what I see out there.
Yeah, somebody's saying nobody is human anymore. No authenticity. Another person says social means you care. This is simply media. The honest to God, I think a lot of people get in delusion with social media. I got delusion with it, right? I'm not going to work hard on Facebook to build up a page and get a strong. I had one. I had people following me. I had a lot of hits and things were really hot and going. When I first started this, I used to reach so many people all the time, make posts, and my just general routine. It wasn't no big deal, but they took it away.
Yeah.
Everything you built, they took away. I watch all these people. One lady I know of, I was looking her up for to see what she's up to. I haven't seen her in a long time. She made a video. I'm sorry, guys. I've had 16 TikTok accounts in 12 months because every time I do something, I get taken down.
Right.
She's working hard to build this up, and she had a great following. I'm talking like 100,000 followers or something. It was a good following, and they just take it away, like snap a finger because somebody got triggered or whatever, some snowflake leftist or whatever says, oh boo-hoo, she said this, and no checks, no nothing, just boom, you're done. I know a lot of people that way. X is probably the most freest site, maybe Rumble. As far as free speech go, if you want really free, I would suggest going to something like Odyssey for live videos, and just like YouTube. But there's no free speech media out there. Even X is somewhat restricted and throttled, and especially during political times. Like next year, you're going to see a lot of social media throttled down on political posts and stuff like that. So it's very frustrating, disheartening, and after a while, you throw up your hands and say, you know what? I'm not here, working my butt off, so Zuckerberg can sell ad space. And that's what it comes down to. He's got people roped in. See, this is like modern day slavery, right? He's got people roped in. He even calls them users. They're his users, not his clients, his users. And he's selling that. He makes billions a year selling ad space because you're giving up your free time to be there. Now, if you want to connect with your family and stuff, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, no big deal. I mean, I would use the space for that, and I do sometimes. I notice a lot of people run to chats because chats has better reach, but I now see chats is also being monitored the same way Facebook is being monitored. So it's all junk.
Yep. Yeah, I use Facebook or social media now generally just to put out information, not to try to sit there and promote, political thing or whatever, my ideology, because I mean, everybody has an opinion, right? As soon as you put out a political thought or an idea, especially if it's controversial or makes people take a stand one way or the other, let's say you're choosing against in a gubernatorial race, between two individuals, and it's like you take a stance against against the establishment candidate. You call them out. Most people are not going to share or like your stuff because they're like, man, he's calling out the person who's going to win. And it's like, maybe we should be speaking truth to power, right? And you using our platform responsibly. But whenever you do that, it goes nowhere. Generally, people just don't gravitate to it, and it hurts your algorithm. So whenever you do want to put something out there that's really positive and want people to see it, well, now all of a sudden, I'm not trying to be a Facebook expert, but now your reach is going to be less because you've had political posts that nobody associated with. They left it out there to die on the vine. Now all of a sudden you're not getting the same traffic, and you put something out there that's important and meaningful, and all of a sudden nobody's going to see it.
It's true. They throttle. Facebook does not like political posts. That is their stance. They don't like political, but they'll let you do it and won't say a word about it, but they'll throttle you in a heartbeat once you do it.
Yeah.
And once you start putting out things like, kitty cat and puppy dog photos again, oh yeah, man, you're getting reach, you're getting friends, people see your post, and they'll even tell you, we've upped your reach. They actually say that. We've upped your reach.
I've gotten several of those recently, and I've noticed that whenever I've not put out anything controversial, for the most part, I'm getting more reach. More people are seeing it, even though the followers may not go up. More people are actually actively being able to see my videos or whatever I put out there. So there'll be a time down the road whenever I need to put something out, and I want a lot of people to see it. And it may be only that one time, and of course my algorithm may change after that. But there's going to be a time whenever I need them to see something, and it may be controversial. But for now, I'm going to try to stay positive on social media.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just not tuning in, you're listening to Common Sense Conservatives right here, WSMN 1590, WSMN 95.3 on your FM dial. If you happen to be getting out of your car and climbing into the house and say, I'd like to listen to the rest of the show, you can catch us at wsmn.live. Or you can, if you want to be part of the conversation, you can look us up at Truckers Independent Broadcasting Network on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and X. We are there as well.
Right.
Let's see. Dirk says free speech is not a given. As Reagan said, the people are responsible. That's absolutely true. And when we talk about free speech on a platform somebody owns, some corporation owns, yeah, they have a right to lay down the rules and the dictates and all the other stuff. They own it.
Sure.
And, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. But I'll tell you one way you can get free speech if you really want it, but you're going to have to pay for it. Build a website.
Yeah.
You can say what you want to do on your own website.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, for the most part, I mean, but you got to get traffic to it, though. I mean, just building a website. No, I mean, how are people going to know about it?
So a lot of people use social media posts and stuff, but instead of making it political, hey, you can catch my talks over here, and they try to funnel people over and things like that.
Right. No, that's true. But people have to want to gravitate over there. You know what I mean? And if you're like, okay, one step and I'm over there, but if it's like 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, people are like, yeah, that's too much work to go to see your stuff. So they won't even come over there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes it depends. I mean, a lot of people put a hook, like they'll start an article if you're doing a blog post or whatever, and they'll get that hook in there. If somebody's interested, they'll go. If they really want to read it, they think it's going to be good. Another thing people can do is there's a social media site called Gab, and to my understanding, that's probably a free speech platform as of right now that people can use. And those that are using it enjoy it a lot. And again, you got to funnel traffic over because they don't have the biggest audience over there. So now you got to find a way to funnel people into it. Sometimes it's a matter of embedding and things like that. But there's ways to get people there, I think. YouTube does a lot of you can do write stuff up, make posts and stuff like that. It's not just all videos, you can make commentary under your videos and stuff. And sometimes maybe if you put out something light on video, those 60-second things or whatever, that stuff kind of, I haven't put the energy into this stuff yet. I thought about doing it, but here again, I'm not chasing. I'm not in the mood to chase, but I will be here in a month or two. I'm thinking because I'm trying to ramp something up. So I probably will be starting to work on some of this.
There you go. Well, that's not a bad idea. Get your message out there. But yeah, like I said, I'm just trying to be more positive on social media. So whenever I do need to put out that thing that I need people to see it, that may be controversial or maybe considered negative, but I want people to be able to see it, as many eyeballs as possible. So that's why I've kind of stayed away from getting, all about politics on the social media, because I'm like, who's really going to see it anyway? Most people that are on my social media, people generally agree with me. Whether they engage with it or not is besides the point, So why am I going to put out things that are controversial every day? It's like, oh, that's the guy who's always just going off about this or that, So I just try to stay positive, put out good information, and then whenever I need to be negative, I'll use it at an appropriate time. And I think next election cycle, I may need to put out something negative that I need a lot of eyeballs to see. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know.
I think some things people do too is they network.
Yeah.
That might be a tactic to use.
Right.
Let's see. Kirk says you do not serve the Congress and Senate serve you, or do you bow to kings? Call me Revere. Absolutely, you're right in the logic. However, it's to my understanding, and this is the state we're at now. We're like a state of corporatocracy leading into technocracy, or a combination of both. And I think Congress is, to my understanding, Congress probably answers to corporations about 80% of the time. When it comes to passing legislation, stuff like that. And a lot of that has to do with corporations are paying their way. We, the people, don't have those kinds of funds. But the irony is we're shopping at those places where these corporations that have those kind of funds are using the money that we make purchases with to fund these people to get their way. And then they turn the screws to us with it.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't know what to say on that. Talking about Mr. Charlie. Yes, it is. Anna, thank you for mentioning that. It's terrible news. That's a good man died today for no good reason at all.
Yep, just sitting there and just trying to engage people on what he thought, his beliefs, and somebody just took a pot shot at him and got him,
See,
and
Joe,
that quick, And another thing we talked about last week, people talk about good guy with a gun. It's like in a situation like that. If you had even a dozen people, good guys with guns that were just dispersed in the audience that were just attending the event, there would be nothing they could do in that situation. And I don't know how many people I saw on Facebook and social media today say, "Oh, a good guy with a gun." And I'm like, there was nothing anybody could have done to have stopped that person from shooting at him.
Not on that case. That was, from my understanding, I was looking at a overview somebody drafted up, about the layout where Charlie Kirk was sitting on stage and how the buildings were laid out, and they were indicating it was from the rooftop.
Okay.
So nobody knew. That's why he got away with it, right? He was concealed at the rooftop, but nobody knew he was there. I don't know if he came in during or
right. So nobody, no good guy with a gun in that crowd would have been able to do anything. It wouldn't have helped. And had a dozen people started pulling guns out, and then all of a sudden I see somebody else with a gun. It's like, is that the bad guy? Do you engage that person? And then what about all the people sitting around them? So to say the people that just say good guy with a gun, it's like you're missing a lot of points here, and you're missing reality in a sense. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a gun to be able to protect yourself, but in that type of situation, good guy with a gun does nothing. I'm sorry. Unless you can see that perpetrator, that potential threat, and engage them before they can fire off a round, then that's really the only way. And the only way to do that is have a tactical advantage, have a higher vantage point, have eyes on different rooftops, which Charlie Kirk security didn't have that ability to do that. Like Secret Service has that ability to be able to expand out. You know what I mean? Create concentric rings of security. But outside of that, a good guy with a gun's just not going to stop anything.
They did have security there, right? They had on staff security. Chris described it as being plainclothes and uniform.
Right. But not enough to secure it like on rooftops and things like that. They probably thought, well, it's locked, it's good to go. If the shot did come from a rooftop, probably didn't have law enforcement up there for sure. And Charlie Kirk's security detail is essentially large enough to secure him in a general area where he's standing and get him out of the area. That's essentially what they're there for, private security like that. There'd be nothing that they could have done to engage a target on a rooftop either.
No, I mean,
or a threat. I should say threat on a rooftop, not target. Let me correct myself.
Yeah, correct. So when you got Secret Service, they scour the internet. They scour social media posts and things like that to make determinations who's going to be a threat, if there's a threat. And, they try to figure out things that, beforehand. But when they go in there, they're trained to check the area and stuff. Although we saw Trump here not too long ago. He about took the same shot as Charlie Kirk did today. And Secret Service was on staff there. So I don't know if this is being a little bit lax. It's oversight or what was going on.
What do you mean with the Charlie Kirk situation? What?
Well, kind of both, because if you think there was a threat, you had that much security detail. I mean, Charlie Kirk has his own 7-8 man team, and you had on staff team of maybe another 7-8 people.
Yeah, I can tell you how it works. I mean, if he had a private security firm, he probably had guys that were around him in the vehicle he's traveling in. Probably had a couple guys that were on the ground in advance but a small security detail like that is very limited, and they're generally focused on around where their principal is going to be. They don't go check rooftops, and they don't have the capability, the manpower, and they don't have the equipment. So basically, they're basically glorified bodyguards around where you're generally are working, maybe a rope line or sitting at an event where you're sitting there giving a speech. You're keeping people from attacking you close up. Somebody from far off, you're not going to be able to stop that for sure.
So when in 2020, when President Trump came, when he was still president the first time running for office, he came over to Manchester, New Hampshire, as you would expect he would during a primary. And I was standing out there in the streets. I took pictures of it, man. We had uniformed officers, local officers on the streets with fully automatic firearms. We had men on rooftops of buildings, the highest buildings near the Verizon, what was the Verizon Center, I think it's now the USNH Center, and they were on the rooftops, and you had helicopters overhead. They weren't playing any games. It wasn't like it was over there in Butler, Pennsylvania, by any means.
But Holden says here the Secret Service doesn't protect pundits. We know that. We're saying that the difference between saying having Secret Service or a federal law enforcement agency that protects a principal is quite a bit different than a small security detail for a political pundit like Charlie Kirk, or say a movie star. They may have a small team of people, but they don't have the ability to project, for the lack of a better word from a military, project power outside of the small bubble that they're in that moment, if that makes sense. So his bodyguards in that moment wouldn't have been able to protect him from a shot on the rooftops. What I'm saying.
Yeah.
There would be nothing that they could have done in that situation.
In hindsight, like this, and you would think all the stuff that goes on, if you're going to have people like, pundits like Charlie Kirk, you think they would have cameras on the rooftops looking for stuff like that where they can monitor.
Sure, but you Charlie Kirk's detail doesn't have those types of things available to them. Imagine how much that would cost to be able to do something like that. Plus, they wouldn't have the authority to do that.
No, I'm talking about the facilities. I mean,
well, sure, but they
you can get temporary cameras.
I'm sure. But here's the thing: they probably sign a waiver saying, "Hey, you're going to be responsible for X, Y, and Z holding this event here."
So I've seen a couple of people ask, when are we pushing back? I'm not sure the context what they're asking. If you're referring to things like happening to Charlie Kirk, or pushing back on the left, or what you mean exactly when we were pushing back, like we're taking back our rights, but if you want to clarify, maybe we can talk about that some. I'm not sure.
Right. But we can always say here in hindsight they could put this and that in it, but you're talking about a lot of money, a lot of resources, and it's like, how often do they have high profile people sitting in that exact spot that they would need all that?
Yeah, like I said, it's easy enough to get bulletproof glass and put it in front of your pundit, your person speaking, whether he's at a podium or sitting in a chair. Do you
think that this little university in Utah would need bulletproof glass available for? I don't think so.
I'm thinking if I was traveling around and I had the kind of fame Charlie Kirk had, in hindsight, I mean, this is just hindsight now.
But
I could buy some bulletproof glass to put up in a stand right in front of me.
How much money does it cost to do that? And also at the same time, then the message is I'm separate from you, I'm above you,
Well, that's why people don't want to do it. They feel a disconnect.
Sure.
But at the same time, you can't continue on. You can't be a man in the arena if you're no longer here with us.
No, I get that. But you're talking about, how much does a ballistic armor cost, right? A lot of money. Then to ship it, just to have the people to set it up everywhere you go. I mean, he may do several engagements in a row. It's like your bulletproof glass isn't going to make it to every one of those places. So now you're talking about multi-million dollars just to protect the guy.
I don't think it'd be that much, 6 feet by say 3 feet. You use 2 pieces at 3 by 2.
No, John, you got to think, how many events does he do on a weekly basis? How much travel? How are you getting those pieces of ballistic armor from point A to point B?
Wait a minute. Isn't there, I think, if I'm not mistaken, isn't there facilities that offer this service? They have stuff like this for events.
Probably so, but now you're talking about how much money is going to go into securing one person, or you get to the point where you don't have enough funds, and then to do all the things that Turning Point was trying to do as well. I think we're getting in the weeds on trying to secure, because think of all the events that he's been through in his life where nothing happened outside of people just yelling at him.
I know what you're saying. He's doing
You know.
nationwide events. In fact, it was, what was it? The Something America tour. Wasn't that what it was?
Right.
So he was touring. So,
Sure.
but he had a venue. So, I mean, it's a matter of sending that glass ahead of you. If it's going to be in a pickup truck or whatever,
I know
maybe
that.
with other gear, like your speaker and your mic.
But John, you think about he does an event in Utah today. Let's say he was doing something tomorrow in Florida. How are you getting all that point A to point B? No, you can't overnight it. You know, so that logistically it becomes not feasible.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make an announcement today. I'm going to start my bulletproof glass applying company. I just got to find contacts throughout. I can't do that. I wish I could, but it would be a good business if somebody had the means to construct that, because it's really what we need. And I think there are event companies that do offer that. That's what I was getting at. I don't know what the cost is.
Right.
I don't know how reasonable the cost is, but I think there are event companies that do. They offer staging and they offer, curtains and things, things you may need at an event. Well, they built Trump's event, and they probably.
I've worked right with those people, so I know what I'm talking about.
So I think they do supply. Yeah, it's a cost, but I mean, it's better to afford the cost than it is to either that or you're going to start going to social media. I mean, doing webinars and stuff and events online.
Right. And then it doesn't have the same appeal. Then you have just tanks at that point, right?
Tanks.
Yeah.
Did you say tanks?
I mean, right.
We're rolling in on war tanks, ladies and gentlemen. We're climbing on the tank now to offer the pundit the mic.
No, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, if you try to do something purely online, eventually your audience is going to taper off.
Oh, it's going to tank. Yeah.
You need to keep that, doing live shows is how you keep that.
Nothing
keep it fresh.
What he was doing was like same thing as a music band that does live concerts and stuff.
Right. Yeah. You're going out there keeping it fresh, right? This is how you make your money, going out and selling the merchandise, right?
Mm-hmm. So I'm seeing people talk about drones, but the problem is drones can be weaponized. So, if you're trying to use drones for surveillance, I mean, I don't know. Because I'm afraid then you get
to the point where everybody's like, well, I need my drone. I need this. I need all these things. It's like,
well, no, I'm thinking if you have a drone flying up there, nobody's going to be suspicious of a second drone flying around, and all of a sudden weaponized. Then so
it gets to be the whole good guy with a gun. But in a crowded situation like that, good guy with a gun, if you're not right up on the next to the bad guy with the gun, you're pretty much you're not going to do anything. You're no good to anyone. Good for you. You have a gun, but you're not going to be able to do anything to stop anything.
But if you're coordinated, and that's what we saw the breakdown. I can't remember his name now. He was holding, going back towards Secret Service and Trump. That was the breakdown, wasn't it? Is they didn't sufficiently.
But let's be clear. Individual audience members showing up at any type of event, whatever it may be, a political event, sporting event, whatever. Those people have not coordinated with if they have guns, they've not coordinated with anybody else, security plan or anything like that. You're an individual with a gun, and in most situations, having it isn't going to help. Stop the bad guy who's on the other side of the arena. I mean, what good are you? You have
what I was going to go allude to was that during the Trump campaign in Butler, there was a breakdown in communications. So they're running two different signals of communications between local law enforcement and Secret Service. So they did have a breakdown that way. And what I was thinking was with the drones, as long as you have the staffing are on communication and in sync, and they know there's only going to be supposed to be one drone. And what he's referring to is the drone would have went up on the rooftop, could have surveilled the different areas that were vulnerable without having to do all the footwork. It'd been quicker, easier, and been a preventive measure. You would have been about communication that, hey, we have one drone. This is it. This is what it looks like. We put a nice, pretty red bow on it or something so you can identify. So if another one shows up, shoot it down.
Right. Well, there's also, electronic countermeasures that you can use as well to jam signals, things like that. You can actually fly that on a drone that actually can have that signal in a given area, and it can just fly a pattern, And
so it just flies one direct pattern, and
and it can deny access to many, especially most commercial drones for sure.
Oh, like geofencing.
Right.
You can geofence out other drones. They wouldn't be able to enter that space.
Right. Wouldn't be able to enter that space. Right. Absolutely. That is, but we're getting into the weeds here, on should have.
A whole lot of what ifs and speculation going on at this point.
I dare say with they probably use a security plan that they've used it many, many times, has worked in so many occasions. There was one instance that something happened that you couldn't plan for with the security detail that you had. So I don't think we could blame those guys.
So I wanted to read this, Todd. We're about 8:47 p.m. Eastern time. So before the show ends, I'd like to bring this up because this came off from social media site. I think I took this off from Facebook. It was Donald Trump for President site. So it wasn't the Donald Trump, wasn't the actual real Trump. It was some site. But he put up a thing saying breaking. The official Black Lives Matter account has posted a video stating that Black people have a right to violence amid mass outrage over the slaying of Arana Zarutska at the hands of black male in Charlotte, North Carolina. So the speaker said, Black people have a right to violence. All oppressed people have a right to violence. And I am going to tell you something. It's like the right to pee. You got to have the right place. You got to have the right time. You got to have the right appropriate situation. I'm absolutely convinced that this is it. This is the mentality of some people in our country, bro. They're pushing for it, and they're saying they have a right to violence.
Right.
Because what? They're a minority. They feel oppressed. Freedom is how you think, right? I mean, I don't mean you, Todd, but I'm just saying in general, just out loud. Freedom is how you think. We're prisoners in our own mind sometimes. We're programmed from our childhood to be obedient, to obey authority, and all this other stuff. So your learning experiences, how you're going to be as an adult, are programmed into you between the ages of 0 and 6 years of age or so. And a lot of people kind of can't break those bonds. They become very obedient. They become complicit. They get used to their way of life and stuff. But there's a lot of things that kind of trap us.
Right.
And a lot of it has to do with legislation and regulations and Bolstein with some of these, because it's really not about the legislation. It's about convincing you don't have a chance. Like guns. Okay. There are a lot of guns laws that have been opposed by SCOTUS, but the laws still remain on the books. When people read the laws, they, oh my God, look I can't do this because the law's right here. In truth, it's been overturned. They just didn't remove it.
Right.
So freedom's a matter of how you think. If you don't think as a free person, you're not a free person.
Right.
And when you start thinking in derelict behaviors like this, it's
and if you're looking to always look to a government official or law enforcement for guidance to tell you can or can't do something, most law enforcement is probably going to say, yeah, you can't do that. But they're not going to embolden you or anything like that. I mean, they're just not going to. They're not going to engage in it. They're going to say, now you can't do that. Just so they don't have to deal with it.
If you have to ask permission, bro, if you have to get a permit, the answer is always no. So now what's the question?
Right. Do it until somebody tells you can. And I'm not saying be idiotic about things. Yeah. If it's certainly going to be unsafe, you're going to put people's lives in jeopardy. Yeah. Don't just do it in those situations. I get that. But for the most part, if it's like a gray area and you're not looking to put anybody's lives in jeopardy, go ahead and do it. If you get caught and it's wrong, guess what? Pay the penalty, whatever. That's the way I look at it. If it's not explicitly illegal and you want to do something, do what your wallet can handle. Essentially, in the Army, we said, do what your career can handle. Do what your wallet can handle. Essentially, if it's wrong, you be ready to pay that fine. You can't be like, well, I didn't know.
Well, that's an issue too in our society, though. I mean, there's a guy sitting in Massachusetts because he got pulled over traveling through Massachusetts. Last time I checked, SCOTUS made a ruling saying you have a right to travel and you have a right to transport your firearms from point A to point B as long as they are legal firearms within the departing state and the state of arrival. And so if you're traveling through the state, you have a right to travel with your firearms. However, it doesn't mean you can just do anything willy-nilly. It's not like you can just go loaded through there, hanging them out the window, flashing them off and stuff, doing what you want to do while you're traveling. You still got to abide by certain rules, like how they got to be stored in trunks, things like that. You be wise about it. Some indications said that's not entirely true, and I don't know why. It was something I was looking at a while back ago, but it was to my understanding that's how it is. But yet there's a guy in Massachusetts was traveling through Massachusetts. They searched his trunk for firearms and found that they were illegal firearms in the state of Massachusetts, and he's still sitting in jail down there 2 months later without bail.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Ridiculous. So we got a few minutes left there, John. For the listeners who don't know, Colonel Chris Wyatt is still in England, jolly old England, for the Women's Rugby World Cup. I think he'll be back end of the month. I think he'll be back. So I think next week he'll still be there. So he'll only be on during the first hour, I believe. But for the South African viewers and listeners, hey, we really appreciate you guys tuning in for him. And, of course, tuning into the show weekly. I appreciate it very much, without a doubt.
Absolutely. So I kind of think, I don't know about you, but when I look at this case with Charlie Kirk, I kind of think this really should pull conservatives tighter together. Don't you think? I've noticed that there's kind of a trend that people I think are leaning towards the right because of nutty stuff they're seeing going on.
Here's what I'm hoping is not going to happen, and I see it will happen. I think the establishment is going to capitalize on this. Like you just said, pulling us together, rally together, stick behind the incumbents that we need to get out of office. Because we need to stick together. And then they're going to talk about the upstarts who are good conservatives trying to run for office that are calling out the establishment. They're going to be like, oh, look at their rhetoric, it's violence. Remember Charlie, and they're going to try to use that to their advantage, and we can't allow that.
Well, there is that play, and
Cannot allow that.
I'll tell you what,
it's going to happen. We can't allow it.
I don't endorse much. I don't endorse anything as a rule. I do put up a couple ad spots and things like that. Just have affiliates, that we might get a kickback if people actually went there, which really doesn't happen. But I put them up anyway. At any rate, there is a thing called Forgotten History on YouTube. He's a retired veteran of both the Army and Marines, and he does the best work making videos within an hour or less. Some of them are only 20 minutes, and he'll do the best videos. I was watching one on Lindsey Graham. I didn't get the whole thing because I was getting distracted. The dogs and things were going on, but he was talking about Lindsey Graham and basically what a flip-flopper he is, and he was pointing out all of his flaws and how he behaves and how he's really not a viable candidate. He's for Trump, he's against Trump, he badmouths Trump, now he's golfing with Trump. And, the nonsensical things going on. This guy does a great, if you want to know insights and you want to get some good data and information, this guy does his research. He does a lot. You can tell he does a lot of work, puts a lot of effort into these things. But I would check that out. I would refer folks to that. That's a really good outlet, Forgotten History on YouTube.
Yeah, but the number of these people, man, that have just been in there way too long, and it's like any coattail they can jump to. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'm over here, I'm safe. I can get through another election cycle. If you're in the Senate, you get 6 years. So it's like, okay, I got reelected. I got 6 years. I got to find some more coattails. And that's what they do, man. A lot of these folks. Lindsey Graham's no different.
What do you think about Loomis out of Wyoming?
Cynthia. What's that?
Cynthia Loomis.
No, I haven't seen enough to be able to say, to give you anything outside of what I could give you about Lindsey Graham or
you're not up on her. Yeah, she's not been in there that long, but she was here a couple months ago. She introduced a bill trying to give immunity to creators of artificial intelligence in the event that some disasters happens. Of course, there's certain protocols to follow, and it's not an easy way out, as long as you're following certain protocols and stuff for transparency and things like that. But if there's some unforeseen incidents in your coding or something and people die, it doesn't necessarily fall on the developer. It falls on the user of the artificial intelligence. So if a doctor's using artificial intelligence, patient suddenly dies because the artificial intelligence didn't work, it was wrong in its coding or something, then the developer will be off the hook, but the doctor may not. So you're putting the onus of the responsibility of this on the person using the artificial intelligence as a professional, as opposed to the developer who should have known that it was malfunctioning. It's kind of like, you remember a few years ago that airplane that crashed? And the reason why it crashed, because it was misreading something to do with the altitude and stuff like that. They tried to make correction, and the pilot's like, "What's it doing?" He had no override switch. There's no kill switch because it's all fly by wire. There's nothing mechanical anymore. So even if he could kill it, he couldn't fly the plane. So now he's fighting the plane, trying to correct what the plane's trying to correct. So they're fighting one another for correction. Ultimately, the electronics won out, and they went down
because there's nothing you're pulling against. It's not about how much strength you have, because you're fighting a computer essentially at that point.
Well, the thing, it's all based on actuators and things like that, and devices that you're not going to beat. They're way beyond your reach. And, so he even if it's attached to that yoke, but it's not. It's all electronic. So you're right. You'd be pulling against nothing. It's like a joystick.
It's nothing. Yeah.
So but so the developer messes up, but he's off the hook because, I shown that I did it in good faith, but people are dead because of you, but you get to get off scot-free and walk away with millions of dollars all the way bank. But who's responsible for that? The guy who built the airplane and used your software?
Right. Right, you got it.
To me, it's a ridiculous bill. I've had nothing against Senator Loomis for the most part, but once I read that bill, I'm like, this is trash.
Yeah,
This is just trash. The same thing giving immunity to these vaccine creators and turn around and force people to take these vaccines. And we know that a lot of things were adversarial about these vaccines. Now, we were being censored when we were talking about it, several years back. We were being our posts were being taken down, our sites were being taken down off social media. Totally, we were wrong. The government's always right. They even tried to change the definition of the word vaccine to suit their agenda during the course of everything. Got caught doing it, took it down.
Right.
So we were right all along, and now we're seeing adverse effects, but there's no accountability for it because they get immunity.
Yeah,
this is nonsensical. This goes back to what I was saying. If the government's going to favor corporations at the rate of 80% or so, and it's kind of a ballpark figure. There's no exact, you can't quite put it on, but some people put some stuff together. I can't remember who put that particular study together. But if they're favoring corporations over independent people in the interest of society, something's wrong with that.
Yeah, I agree with it.
That's a bad government. We've got a rogue government. Something's wrong. What we got is called a corporate capture of our United States government.
Corporatocracies.
Well, this would be referred to as corporate capture because they're capturing Congress, they're capturing regulations. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We've run it right up to the end. We hope you got something out of it. Please pray for Charlie Kirk or for the family of Charlie Kirk, and hope they do well. As always, have a good week. Be good. If you can't be good, we'll be good at it. And we gone.